Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my little mini-series of video where I take a look at Bandai compared to Hasbro in regards to Power Rangers toys so far. Because as I mentioned in the first video, we are very early days into the Hasbro era, so it's almost unfair. And this series is not meant to demean or belittle either company. It's just meant to be an interesting comparison, and it will be something I update as we go, but I thought it would be fun to talk about. So, today, children, we're talking about Zords. And this one's almost more unfair because I feel there's such a little sampling. I mean, we've been out the same amount of time, but I feel we had a lot more figures to compare here compared to Zords because we really only have the Beast Morphers ones as of this recording. As of the time I'm recording this, all we have is a look at the prototypes of the Dino Fury ones, and I will say that those look really good. Just to talk about those for a second, I don't have them in hand, so I don't know how they feel. Are they loose? Are they weird? I don't know. But from what we've seen, I think they look really good, and I think that that's a really good check mark on Hasbro's side for how articulated they're making them look like the show. So that'll be definitely something to take a look at. Maybe I'll even do an update at the end of the year after that. But as of right now, I wanted to talk about it because all we have is the Beast Morpher Zords. And I think the biggest difference is, before I even talk about quality, is availability. Now, Bandai was not foreign to having some Zords be hard to find. If I can think off the top of my head of one example I know was hard to find for people, at least that I heard of, was like the Brachiocharge Megazord. Was that what it was called? Titanocharge, whatever. Titanocharge Megazord from Dinocharge. That was one I know I heard some people say, at least that I spoke to, had a hard time finding it. So there would be the odd mecha that would be hard to find. I know some of the Dino Fury, have I been saying Dino Fury? Stupid, all the Dino season. Dinocharge. There was some Dinocharge auxiliaries that were also hard to find. But I would say, yeah, there were some cases, but it wasn't widespread. Meaning that even if you had a hard time finding Titano or an auxiliary, when you went to the store, there was going to be some Zords on the shelf. And I can't really think of a season, and I could be wrong, and everyone's experiences are different, but I can't think of a season where you had a hard time finding the main Megazord. Unless you were looking for it real late in the game, like you wanted a Thundersaurus Megazord right when SPD stuff was coming out, then you might be having a hard time. But for the most part, outside of some odds and ends, you would be able to find Zords. So it wasn't perfect, but that was the biggest problem with the Hasbro era, is, like, I did a whole video on this, on how hard it was to find Beast Morpher Zords. When they first came out, I remember this, all of them were spotted, but the only ones I ever found in person were blue, yellow, and silver. Those are the only ones I ever found on the shelf, excuse me. And then about a month before lockdown stuff started, I started seeing them on clearance, then I never saw them again. Those are the only three I ever saw on shelves. Like I said, saw them on clearance, and then after that, not a whisper. I saw them online. Those ones were easier to get. Red and gold would pop up occasionally online, but more often not when I saw listings, it was those ones from like a third-party seller that wanted 3 times the money. The best way to get them was in that big, gigantic pack, which is really cool. I like the idea that they did that, but the bottom line is they were very hard to find. So I think for now, Bandai wins in that category. Yes, there were some hard ones to find, but you could still find something. So even if you're having a hard time finding that one, you would always find a Dinocharge Megazord on your shelf, probably. Now, in terms of quality, again, that's very tough. All we've really had is Hasbro. So to talk about them first, I would say that there's some good looking stuff in them. They have some really nice stuff with scaling. I like some of the stuff they did with the transformation. They look a little more accurate to the show, especially when you take a look at the Ultra Zords next to each other. The Hasbro one looks a lot more like the in-show suit, which is really nice. I think there's some good thinking there about more mobility and more accuracy, as we see with Dino Fury. And again, we're early days, so they could very well continue to improve upon this. But Bandai has a longer history. For the longest time, up until what was the season before Overdrive? Mystic Force. Up until Mystic Force, we used the Japanese molds, pretty much. You know, they would be slightly altered, maybe had a Power Ranger sticker on it, a lightning bolt, something, I don't know. There's an elbow plate missing, the fans riot. But they were the same molds. And then in Overdrive, we started to use our own. We experimented with the bigger one. We wasted 2 slots on 2 Super Drive Max Megazords, or Drive Tank, or whatever it was. And then Jungle Fury was kind of the hybrid era. We got some of the Japanese stuff in the higher end Megazords, and then the transforming ones were kind of the precursor to what we got. Then the MMPR 2010 stuff started the official start of the Zord Builder system. It was Samurai that officially started it, but the MMPR 2010 Megazord was the first one in it. But then from MMPR 2010 to Samurai on, we used the same compatible general mold like ecosystem. Instead of going bigger and kind of like Mega Bloks feeling like Drive Max, we went with a smaller one that was more budget. And it got a lot of mixed stuff. I'll admit, I was overly harsh little Sentai purist snob Dawson in my Samurai review because I didn't like Samurai and I hate that version of me. And there was some problems with all of them, sure. There was some paint missing, not all of them are perfect. Sometimes some loose problems, sometimes the individual modes didn't look right. But you know what? I think the Samurai through Super Ninja Steel line, for the most part, was pretty solid. So many angry fans were like, why don't they want to sell a $70 mech to kids? Like, the economy and the times have changed, and honestly, for the price point of about 25 to 30 bucks, they were pretty solid Megazords. I was pretty happy with them. Like, usually they didn't look the best individually, and some would be missing more paint than others. I think that really, for the most part, it wasn't until Super Steel across the board that I really thought Bandai was dropping the ball on how things looked. But for the most part, I was happy with the Megazords. You know, they weren't perfect, but they were solid, and they were cheaper. And that was good not only for kids here and parents here, but even for some collectors that might be on a budget. I mean, for example, I never found Tobaspino. I missed getting the pre-orders, the price skyrocketed, and so I just bought the US version. It looked fine, it only cost me like 25, 30 bucks, boom, I'm done. I'm going to bed. So, like, I think people were way too harsh on it. I think people were way too harsh on Zord Builder. I personally don't think it got in the way of anything, and I think it was a smart gimmick to get kids to continue to buy year after year. But my point is I think Bandai had a pretty solid thing going with the Zords. So I would say that I would give the victory to Bandai in terms of that, because they had some solid, decent looking Megazords for a good price. The Zord Builder system was a great gimmick for playability for kids. And right now, Hasbro just doesn't have the availability. They have some potential though. So I definitely want to revisit this, maybe after Dino Fury and later. But I think they have the potential to do some really good stuff. Like I said, it's a bit unfair for this one in particular, but I thought it was interesting to talk about right here. But what are your guys' favorite Megazord releases? What was your favorite season for Megazord releases? Which do you prefer, Bandai or Hasbro? What are you excited about the potential of what Hasbro could bring to the evolution of Power Rangers Megazords? I want to know it all. But you don't have to do an essay or anything. You don't have to cite your sources or anything stupid like that. I don't even know why I said that. I just hated citing my sources. Like, oh, you have to put it in this order. Like, dude, I'm just going to give you the link. Anyway, until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Signing out.